But how did you join? You get the link from your friends, ka? Oh, thank you, Russell. Oh, okay. KGB. What is KGB? Oh yeah. Okay, okay. Wait. I give the link to Nathan, and I think I will invite them now lah. I did invited them to our Google Classroom, but for this calendar I forgot. Yeah, Nathan Eddie, Nathan. Oh, okay, save. Following event. Okay, send. Oh, Ian also. Ian. Hi. Hi, Wong and Nathan. Sorry, I forgot to invite you using the calendar. Nice to meet you both again. Welcome back, Nathan and okay, wait. I invite Ian first because I cannot find your name. Jonathan. Ian. In. Okay, in. In. Ah, yes, I found it. And just save this and all following event. So I don't know if I send it again, and then the existing student also get the email again lah. So but forgive me if the existing student get the same email again and again lah. Okay, so I already invited Wong, Nathan, and Ian in our all of the um, Google Calendar. Okay, so okay. For the tutorial and practical, I will do after this, after our class. Huh? Okay, so for those who just joined recently, I will make sure you all will invited in our previous class so that you all can see the recorded video lah. Okay, so I hope you can watch it again. But I think Nathan and Wong, because you are DSF previously, you already know lah about some of the software engineering things. Okay, so, because now we are in the software process, not really same lah. Actually, it is the topic is more or less similar. Just in this degree, it is a little bit details lah. Yes, like waterfall, you already know waterfall, right? RAD, some of the software process. And then today we will going to learn about agile methodology. Yeah, but the difference is the level is a little bit deeper lah. I hope you all can hear my voice clearly lah, because now it's raining here. It is not too heavy lah, but besides that, my neighbor also doing their renovations. Is my voice clear to you all?
Yeah.
Oh, okay lah, but my background noise, you all can hear kah?
No.
Oh no. Oh, okay lah, if you cannot hear the sound. Okay, so I recording our session now. And then I will share the screen. Thank you to Russell because you have shared some of the reading material about the RAD. And but for the RAD, because we have some conflicted info, right? Because some in article said that RAD model doesn't require a lot of team, but our version said it has a lot of it needs a lot of team or human resource. But for that things, I think we will discuss later during the practical, because I will need you all later to do some research about some software process, okay, during our practical later. But for today, we will proceed to our next software process, which is the component based, and then the agile methodology lah. Okay, so okay, I share my screen first. Okay, last time we have done spiral, so now we are going to this component based development. Okay, so if you have any question, you can raise your hand or you can type in our chat. Okay, so today we will go into the sixth software process, which is component-based development. Okay, so for this component, we will not going deeply in this because there are not much information about this. Okay, so but we will cover this as an introduction to you all. Okay, so component-based development. Okay, so this is one of a software process model too. But the difference in it is you don't need to create the code from the scratch. Okay? So it supports object-oriented technology. Okay, so object-oriented technology, if you have learned previously the object-oriented programming, you all will know that in object-oriented programming, each of the object will have its own class, right? And then when you do some module based on that object, you don't need to combine it with any other object. So when you want to modify one object, you don't need to modify the other object. So that is object-oriented programming. Okay, so this component-based development, it supports the object-oriented programming, meaning to say that you will use object-oriented technique in the development, but for the ready exist component, we don't need to develop it from the scratch. We don't need to do coding. Okay, so when you want to implement the component-based development software process, you we need to make sure that we already have that component, either it is exists or not. Okay, but if it is not exist, then we cannot implement the component-based development lah. Okay, so the first thing that must be done when you want to implement the component-based development is you need to identify the candidate for the component. Okay, so when you have already your requirement, you need to make sure either that requirement can be developed using the existing component. If no, then you cannot use this component-based development. Okay, so after that, after you identify the component and you found that it is exists, then you will need to find the components in the library lah. Because if you do the development when you are doing coding, we can implement a lot of library, right? So if you, I think of course you all already know what is a library. A library is already exists a coding that consisting a lot of functions, ready functions. Okay, so you can just import the library and then use the function inside it. So that is what we call as a component. Some of the, all of the components that you needed, you will need later. You need to make sure it exists in in any library, and then that library is downloadable or can be purchased lah if it is need to be purchased. Okay, so you will need to find the components in a library or in libraries, many libraries. Okay, so after that, you extract the component if available lah. Okay, so you extract all of the component that required from all the libraries that you have downloaded. After that, you build. Okay, so like I said just now, if it is not exist, I said just now, then you cannot do lah, right? But if most of your component is already exist and only about 20% like that, or like only 20% of the component doesn't exist, then you need to build the component lah. But if 80% of the library is not exist, I think it is based on the software company or your software team decision lah. Either you want to go with the component-based development or you choose another software process module. But like I said, if maybe about 20% or at most 40% of the component doesn't exist and your team okay to develop that the non-existing component, then it is okay to proceed with this component-based development. Okay, so after that, you put the new component in the library. You put the new component that you built in the library. Okay, so after that, construct the end iterations of systems. Okay, so the end iteration of the system, meaning to say that if your system have about maybe 10 version or 10 iterations or 10 module that you will need to develop. Okay, so maybe and then you construct all of the module using all of the existing library that you already put in the library lah. Either it is existing or the new one that you have developed and then you already put it in the library. After that, baru you construct the module or the release of your system. Okay, so when I say a module or anti-iteration of system, it is actually maybe for the first iteration, maybe you will develop the first module of your system or the first version of the system. Okay, so the second iteration is it is depends on the software team. Either you want to separate the iteration based on module or based on function or based on release we don't know. It is based on the software team. But if you need to but if it is based on module, then you construct the next module lah. Okay, so understand this component base. So far so good. Do you have any questions? Anybody? No question at the moment. Okay, so how about Jonathan? Any questions? Okay, these are the component-based process. Okay, so it is a little bit different because you only need to develop a component that is not exist. But like I said just now, it is depends on your software team. Maybe if the component is only 20% doesn't exist, so maybe you can proceed with this component base. But if like the component is 80% still not ready, only 20% ready, then it is based on the software team to decide either you want to proceed with this component base or not lah. So after that, the advantage of this component base. First, it focuses on integrating these parts rather than developing them from the scratch. Okay, so like I said just now, it is basic. It is based on the existing component. Only when needed, you need to develop some component that is still not exist. Okay, hence, this model leads to software reuse. So the good thing of this is it can reuse the component of the software or the parts of the software. Okay, so we will discuss this chapter later in our next chapter, which is CBSE, component-based development software engineering. Okay, so there are some example of this. Okay, so if you have used some framework in software development, for example, model view controller, you will find that there are some exist already component that you can just easily use just by importing the library. For example, login functions. Okay, so MVC provides a framework, and then there are a lot of library that is available for the commonly used functions. For example, the login functions. You just need to import the library and then do some configuration setting, and then after that you can use already their login functions. Okay, so their login functions is not only that's very simple login, but it also enable you to register your user, and then you also can assign role to your user, And then you can manage your user, delete, edit, update. Okay, so it is a very good library lah. So that is one of the example of this component based development. So after that, we proceed to the agile software development. Okay, so previously I remember Noel asking about this agile software development. This agile software development is also a software process model, but it is a family of software process model, meaning to say that under agile software development, there are a lot of software processes. There are a lot of software process model that share the same feature. Okay, so the same feature we will cover later in this chapter, and then we also will learn some of the software process model that is using that is under this this agile, okay, which is XP, the first software process model that implement agile feature lah. Okay, so agile software development is a family of software process, and it is modern. I mean, although it is already created during 2000 or 1990 on 1990 bukan last year, previous year, yeah. I mean, it is already created long time ago, but because it is newer than the traditional software process model, then it is considered as a more modern software process development. Okay, so under software process development, I will repeat again, there are a lot of software process model under it. For example, XP, which is extreme programming. After that, Scrum. After that, Kanban. And then there are various also lah, but we didn't cover that in this chapter. We only cover XP later. Okay, so all of the software process model under agile software development will apply the same feature or principle, which is first this one. Okay, so all of the software process under this agile is increment available in 2 until 3 weeks, meaning fast lah. Each of the version or release is available within 2 until 3 weeks. And it support incremental and iterative, meaning to say that each of the software process under this agile software development will support incremental, meaning version by version, and then each of the process inside this can be iterative. Okay, can be iterative. After that, it support the requirement changing. If we compare it with the plan-driven software development, okay, plan-driven also support requirement changing, but the requirement changing, maybe it is not that too rapid lah. Okay, so, but the agile software development support requirement changing that is changed rapidly. Okay, so we add the words rapidly for agile. Okay, so after that, okay, so it support minimal documentations. Because if we compare it with the plan-driven development, okay, so plan-driven development is whatever software process that we have learned previously, which is like the waterfall, prototype, RAD, and evolutionary software process. Okay, remember whatever software process that we have learned previously, it is under plan driven, meaning to say that all of the process usually need to be planned in advance before doing the implementation. But for the agile, okay, so agile, um, okay, so plan driven also beside it needs to plan each of the process in advance. It also it also focus in documentations. Okay, so macam each of the phase need to come out with some documentation. So in the plan driven software process model, it not only focus on that software itself, but also they also need to focus on doing the documentations. Okay, so it is different with the agile because agile will focus on the software itself, and then they will not do any unnecessary documentations. Only like the really required documentations. For example, the final without any more changing after that. So only the final version or the final version of the software will be documented. Okay, so minimal documentation. That is what agile software, all of the software process model under agile practice. Okay, so after that, cross-functional team. Okay, so cross-functional team meaning to say that the team that will involve in all of the software process and the agile software development will have cross-functional team or must have cross-functional team. Cross-functional team is a team that coming from different background or different expertise. Okay, so maybe in the team, in your software team, there are also somebody that expert in marketing. And then there's also somebody that expert in finance. There are also somebody that expert in operations. There are also somebody that expert in human resource. Okay, so how we can find this team? Okay, for example, maybe you can find someone that is actually from a software company, but previously their software company is focusing on doing a software in type of marketing software. Okay, so the software developer from that kind of company you can hire, and then we have one team that is expert in marketing already lah. I mean, he is also expert in software development, but additional expertise is in marketing. Okay, so same like finance and operation or human resource or any other field. Okay, so cross-functional team meaning to say that your team or your software team have a lot of expertise inside one team. Okay, wait. Sorry guys, there's a Atuh, I need to warning. I need to warn my kids. Okay, so sorry. Okay, so we proceed. Another feature of agile software development is iteration with short time frame. Okay, so each of the iteration must be done in a short time frame. Okay, so like it said here lah, increment available in 2 or 3 weeks. Okay, so in each increment or in each version, there will be iteration of process. So that's why if an increment must be available in 2 until 3 weeks, meaning to say that each of the process of the software process activity must be done within the 2 until 3 weeks also lah. Okay, so far so good. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, so each of the iteration, like previously, it says that iteration with a short time frame. Okay, so after that, each of the iteration will have this. What they will do in each of the iteration of the process is they will produce a working product, and then there must be a review activity for that working product. Okay, so that is what happened in each of the iteration during the agile software development. Okay, so these are the general process of agile software development, which is actually shared by all of the software processes under this agile software development lah. Okay, so first, the team will need to do a to-do list or product backlog. Okay, so they will make sure that they will list out this software must have what function lah. Okay, so that is a to-do list or product backlog. After that, each of the backlog or each of the to-do, they will do a sprint backlog. Yes, so they will see what is needed for each of these to-do list. Okay, so as you can see, they take only one to-do here or only one item from the to-do list, and then they will list out what is needed for this one function or this one to-do list. After that, they will do the sprint iteration, meaning to say that they will do whatever needed to do this one function. Okay, I will set this, it is one function or one to-do list lah. Okay, so they will do the process, and then they will iterate it, each of the process until they can get this one function. Okay, so the iteration will, the process that they will iterate will it is consisting of this process where in each of the function or the to-do list, one to-do list, they will iterate this process. They will do analysis, they will develop, after that they will test, and then they will iterate again. If until the to-do list or the function is fully developed lah. After that, they will do all of this. They will iterate all of this process, analyze, develop, test, and iteration for each of the bricks here, each of the function here, until it become one complete software. They will combine and integrate each of the bricks or each of the function to be one software. After that, the client and all of the stakeholder, okay, the stakeholder, remember anybody that have a relation to that system, have an interest into that system, will do the review, and then we'll plan for the next iteration. So they will see whatever needed to be done for the next iteration. After that, if they think that there are another requirement or function that need to be improved later, so the process will repeat again. Okay, so these are the 12 agility principles, meaning to say that all of the software process model under this agile software development will share this principle, this 12 principle. Okay, so when they want to categorize a software process model, any software process model, either it is under agile or not, so they will need to check either that software process model fulfill these 12 agility principle. If not, then it is not under agile software development. Okay, so first, customer satisfaction. Okay, so the first is the customer satisfaction. Ah, customer satisfaction. So they will do all of the software process model under agile software process development should prioritize customer satisfaction as the first prioritization. Okay, so they will how they will make sure it, or how they will make sure the customer either it is satisfied or not with the system is by early and continuous delivery of the software to the user. Okay, so you, as you all can see previously, the agile process is they will deliver the first increment to the user or the first version to the user. Okay, so the user can see their product as early as the first version when it is released. Okay, so all of the agile software development will make the customer satisfaction as the first priority by delivering the product as early as it can. Okay, so after that, welcome changing requirement. Okay, so all of the software process and the agile will welcome changing requirement. So even though the changing come at the later stage of the development, they still welcome the changing. Okay, so even though the changing come at the testing phase, okay, so they still accept that changing requirement. Okay, so after that, working software is delivered frequently. Okay, so like what we have learned previously, the working software is delivered within 2 until 3 weeks, right? If you remember the previous slide. Okay, so after that, working software is the principal measure of the progress. What does this mean? Meaning to say that when a people or your stakeholder or your top management want to see the progress of the system, they will see the product first, meaning the product is the progress. Different with the plan-driven development, usually they will have a lot of documentations, right? So beside the software in the plan-driven development, they also will see the documentation for to look at the progress of the system. But for the agile, because of there are minimal documentations, so that's why the software is the principal measure of the progress. Meaning, if the top management or any stakeholder want to see the progress, they only can see the product lah, the software. Okay, so maybe you will need to show your top management, okay, previously we have only done this function and this function, but in this new release, we have added this function C. Okay, so all you need to show to them is the software to show the progress. After that, the sustainable development. Sustainable development meaning to say that for all of the software process under agile software development, it support the sustainable development. Meaning to say that they didn't make their team member work over their apa tu, they didn't make you do your task macam terlebih-lebih. I don't know how to say it. Okay, so for example, if you are applying the agile software development, your top management should not let you work. For example, your top management should not make you work. For example, overtime 2 weeks in a row. Okay, so they should not allow that. Okay, so the best is for the software developer to work about 40 hours a week. It is a reasonable hour lah. Meaning to say that you shouldn't, or your top management shouldn't let you work you should not be too exhausting lah. Okay, don't work too hard, because why? Because the expert believe, when you work, when a person constantly work overtime, you will have a fatigue mind. Okay, you will have a fatigue mind. Okay, so the fatigue mind will create more mistakes. After that, your performance also will be decreased. So that's why they didn't allow you to work exhaustively lah. Okay, I hope you can understand lah. That is what it means by sustainable development. When anybody or your software team leader want to implement this agile software development, any software process model under agile software development, the working hour should not be too rigid, because you cannot think correctly when your mind is tired or fatigued. Because when you do the programming, it will require you to use your mind actively, and it is involve difficult intellectual activity when you do the programming. Because why? You think the logically, all of the algorithm you need to think and you need to imagine. So that's why it can easily makes your mind fatigued. That's why when we want to apply this agile software development, we need to really plan the time so that all of the team member is not too tired lah. Okay, so after that, close daily and cooperation between business people and developer. Okay, so you will need to communicate closely, or maybe daily lah, daily excluding weekend lah. Okay, so closely and then almost daily to cooperate and communicate with your client, your stakeholder, and the developer. After that, face-to-face conversation. So this agile software development support face-to-face conversation, not support lah, prefer face-to-face conversation. Yes, so it prefer face-to-face conversation. After that, motivated individuals, meaning to say that each of the team member need to motivate your team, your clique lah in the one team. Okay, so that, and then you also need to trust. If you are the boss, or you are the HOD, or you are the leader of the team, you need to make sure that you give the responsibility to each of your team and then you give them responsibility to complete their work without you interrupting them. That means that you are believing their work, you are trusting their work. Okay, so that is the motivated individuals. After that, attention to technical excellence and good design. Okay, so when you are involved in agile software development process later, so each of the team must have a good attention to technical excellence and good design. Meaning to say that each of the team have the responsible to be alert with new technology or new technical excellence that is available out there. Okay, so to make sure that you all are delivering a good and quality software, or and then design quality software, meaning including its design lah. Okay, so to the user, simplicity. Okay, so simplicity. Okay, so when you are in a child development process, you will need to try to keep the design of the system as simple as possible. Okay, so you will need to eliminate the unnecessary complexity as soon as you discover it. Okay, so maybe you think that that function is needed, but actually it is not requested by the client. Okay, so it is not really required, but you think it is needed. So eliminate that kind of complexity first. Okay, so just deliver whatever is needed first. Okay, so do not complicate the design based on things that might be needed in the future. Okay, but choose the simplest solution that works now. Okay, so if you think it is the function is really, maybe this is a needed in the future lah. Okay, so maybe maybe in the few months lagi they are maybe they will requesting the advanced searching function. Okay, now we have the searching function already lah, but you think that in the few months later they will request for advanced searching function. So because of that advanced searching function is not requested yet, so don't do that first. Just do whatever that is needed. Okay, so because why? Because even though you really make it complete now, but because of the system is not finalized yet, the system or the requirement may change in the future. So macam no point lah you make it a really complete or perfect now, because it may be changed later. Okay, so self-organizing team. Okay, so self-organizing team meaning the software engineer that will involve in the agile should have really good self-organizing team. You need to know that, or your HOD should make sure that your teams can be organized, should be organized correctly lah. Meaning to say that your team or each of the individuals in your team is assigned correctly to the functions that is suitable to them, suitable with their expertise. After that, regular adaptation to changing circumstances. Okay, so yeah. So if there are any changing or changes in the future, the changes regarding the requirement, this agile software development should support it lah. Okay, so far so good.
Okay.
Okay, so raise hand please also. Whoever is still good need to digest. Okay, so yeah, Ian said need to digest first. Okay lah, so you digest first lah. If you don't understand, you can ask lah. So these are the differentiation between plan-driven versus agile. Okay, so Jonathan, maybe you because previously you haven't joined the waterfall, all of the previous software processes, right? But for the DFT, have you learned previously about the waterfall, about the RAD? Did you learn it during your diploma? Oh, Nathan memang lah. Oh, waterfall, yes, Jonathan. Oh, okay, so prototype, Jonathan? Not really touch it, but got, oh, okay lah, as long as you have apa tu, some idea about that lah. Okay lah. Okay. Yeah, you know the waterfall lah. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so uh, you need to say that like waterfall, you need to plan everything before you start doing. Okay, and each come up with some documentation. For example, for the stage of software requirement, so you need to come out with the SRS. After that, in the software design phase, you need to come out with the software design document. Then in the software testing, you need to come out with the software testing document. Okay, so every stage, almost all of the stage will have its own document. And then it can be, in each of the stage, the document will be the input for the next stage. So it is really plan driven, and then it is really heavy in doing the documentation lah. Most of the plan driven, but not all lah. Okay, so now this is the differentiation. Okay, so agile approach versus plan driven approach. Okay, so for the agile approach, it consider design and implementation to be the central activity, and thus incorporate requirement elicitation in testing into design and implementation. Okay, so the main focus of agile approach is in the design and implementation. Okay, so meaning to say that if they have one function, they will not do, they will directly go to the design. But during doing the design, they also incorporate the requirement in when they are doing the design. But the main process is design and doing the coding. That is agile approach. Okay, so but plan-driven approach, it identifies the separate stages in the software process with output associated with each stage. So like I said just now, they will separate each of the stages, and then each of the stages will have its own output, like the document. Okay, so after that, another differences is, okay, for agile approach, the iteration occur across activity. Okay, so meaning to say that they will do iteration, meaning what they iterate is the like analysis, design, implementation, and testing. They will iterate it again and again for each of the increment or each of the version of the system. Okay, so therefore, the requirements and the design are developed together rather than separately. Okay, so for the plan-driven approach, the iteration occurs within activity, meaning to say that when the stage or the phase is analysis stage, they will only iterate all of the process inside the analysis. After they finalize the output for the analysis, baru they will go to the design. And then after that, if there are iteration needed for the design, if then only the iteration only occur inside the design. I mean, they only iterate all of the activity that is needed to do the design. After it is finalized, and then they will go to the next phase. But for the agile approach, they will iterate each of the phases for each of the increment or each of the release or version of the software. Okay, so iteration occur within activities with formal document used to communicate between stages of the process. Okay, so requirement will evolve. Then a requirement specification will be produced as input to the design and implementation process. Okay, so this is what I said just now lah. Okay, so for like I said just now, formal document used to communicate between the stages. Okay, so after you do the analysis, you come out with a software requirement, so SRS, software requirement specification, because inside the SRS there will be an analysis phase, analysis information. After that, it will be input for the software design. After that, software design will come out with the software design documents, SDD. After that, SDD will be an input for the implementation. Okay, so that is what it means by this statement. Okay, so after that, the agile approach might produce some design document. Might. It is not must. Might. Only might produce some document, some design documentation. But maybe it is not each of the iteration of the something that is not confirmed will not documented yet. Only the things that is really finalized, baru they will document it. So that's why it is might. Okay, so it is not compulsory for each of the stages to have its own document. But differ with the plan-driven approach, so, it supports the incremental development and delivery. Yes, even the agile approach also support incremental and development delivery. And then for the plan-driven approach, it is feasible to allocate requirement and plan the design and development phase as a series of increment. Okay, so this is happen for the some incremental and development. It is happen, for example, in the incremental model and spiral model lah. Okay, so we have learned this under the evolutionary software process about the incremental and spiral model. So it support the incremental development and delivery lah. So incremental model and spiral is have some feature of agile approach. Okay, so another differences is agile development has low criticality, and then a plan-driven development have a high criticality. Okay, so usually agile development will require a senior developer where they are more expert. Okay, so where the plan-driven junior developer is enough already lah. Because maybe why? This is my opinion lah. Why agile development need a more senior developer? I think before I tell my opinion, I want to ask your all opinion first. Why agile development needs senior developer? Yes, first experience. Okay, so in terms of the process of agile development and in terms of the plan-driven development, in terms of the process of each of the software development, who can think? What is the criticality mean in that? Okay, agile is harder. Agile is hard. Yes. Okay, for me lah. For the student, do you have any idea? Before I answer Kelvin. Okay, so Noel said since the iteration is shorter, so need more experienced developer to execute it. So the process is more complex. Okay, yeah. Okay, so all of your answer yes. Okay, so experience also yes, like Calvin said, because the senior developer has more experience, and then like what Noel said, each of the iteration is shorter. So really experienced developer is needed because the experienced developer know which way or which maybe design or which way of coding or which style of coding will produce better result. Okay, so try and error process can be executed because they already executed the best method based on the experience of the developer. And then so Jonathan also said the agile development is more complex. Yes, also because why? Different with the plan driven development. Plan driven development usually you plan everything in advance. Okay, so whoever do the development letter, they just need to follow the step by step or each of the document that is already provided by the previous planning. But for the agile development, you will do the planning and then the analysis in each of the iteration, in each of the release of the software that you will going to develop later. So that's why it is more complex. Okay, so all of your answer is correct. Okay, so for Alvin, criticality means that um, low criticality, high criticality. Meaning to say that this is my opinion, but you also can find your own research letter. What we all can share about what is the low criticality and high criticality. Low criticality for me is the software that you will need to develop must have a low criticality. Low criticality software, um, something that not really, something that low risk software. Low risk software definitions for me is a software that doesn't involve a lot of money or software that don't really need a very detailed planning. Okay, so for example, banking lah, I think banking software. Okay, so this is my opinion. You all can search your own. You all can do your own research about that. But this is my opinion. So later, if you found a very good or and relevant reason or relevant meaning of the low criticality, you all can share with the class and me. But for me, for some software that is a low critical software is something is a software that really that is not involved uh, like not like a kind of banking punya software lah, because banking punya software is something that needs transaction money, and then it will resulting in a very huge mess if you didn't do your planning and analysis thoroughly. Okay, so for me, for something like banking software, it is more needed or it is more suitable to use a plan-driven development. You know what? Because plan-driven development, it will really do the design, the analysis, all of they plan ahead, right? And then they will only proceed when the the requirement or each of the design or analysis is already confirmed and already reviewed, and then already finalized. Okay, so that is what, in my opinion, is a high criticality software or criticality mean. I think not a complex code or not lah, but it is, like I said just now lah, the software that is involved a transaction or money transaction, something like that lah. Because if you do a mess with your code or with your software, it will produce huge kerugian, huge loss. Okay, huge loss. Okay, so for the agile, because each of the process is only in short time, so the possibility to do a very thorough on analysis and design is berkurang lah. I mean, the possibility for you to miss out some important thing is high. The possibility for, yeah, I think I keep repeating myself lah. Okay, but Elvin, you keep log in and log out of, I think. Can you hear my explanation just now? Yeah, line problem. So can you hear the explanation just now? Reset. Oh, so can you hear my explanation about the low criticality and high criticality? I will see the record. But for everybody, are you agree? Or do you think there's any other definition for the criticality? Russell, you always find resources from outside, kan? So what do you think? Risk. Okay, so Russell said do you not agree with my opinion? Okay, Calvin said yes. I think I have said just now lah. The criticality may be referred to the risk, the high risk, the high criticality meaning high risk system. Oh, I am not always find external resource. But do you think, based on my opinion just now, do you agree? Critical as importance. Yeah. So, in short, I think criticality meaning to say that um, criticality meaning risk of like what Kelvin said lah, risk. Okay, so high criticality meaning high risk. Low criticality meaning low risk. Is it? High critical meaning should not have risk. High criticality. High criticality should equal to no risk. Low critical meaning to say that meaning, so do you mean that low criticality meaning high risk? So you do you mean that a plan driven development is suitable for no risk system? Criticality is based on overall consequences of failure. Okay, so high consequences mean high criticality. High criticality means got less room to make error. High criticality means got less room to make error. Oh, yes, yeah. I agree. High criticality means got less room to make error. Yes, because plan driven plan in advance, and then they will make each of the planning thoroughly. So because they usually didn't really flexible for the changes, so that's why when they do the planning, they assume that there will be no changes in the future. Okay, so high criticality meaning got less room to make error, and then low criticality meaning error. I mean, your system can make error because in the next iteration, the error can be fixed. Okay, so Russell, wait, okay, yes, I think I agree with Kelvin lah. Okay, so after that, Jonathan said it could like mean it's more problem prone if not done correctly on time. So, Jonathan, which is more to problem prone? Low criticality or high criticality? Low. Okay, so low criticality meaning to say that more problem, like more prone to the problem lah, right? You mean can accept a system that can have a problem in the future, right? Okay, so correct lah, like Kelvin said. Okay, yes, I agree also. So everyone, the idea of your classmate is can be accepted so later maybe in our, maybe if you found any questions like this, you can also answer like this lah. Okay, Russell, criticality is based on the overall consequence of failure. Higher consequence meaning higher criticality. Okay, criticality is based on overall consequence of failure. Okay, higher consequence meaning higher criticality. Oh, yeah. Okay, so it is correct lah. So the plan-driven development is suitable for high criticality, meaning higher consequences of failure system, because a plan-driven development, like I said just now lah, it is the planning is done in advance. Okay, so it all of the things that should be done in the future, they already do the planning. Okay, so I think all of your opinion. Okay, so after that, requirement change often for agile development, and then for the plan-driven development, it also can accept requirement changes, but the requirement should not change often. So that's why I said for agile development, rapidly is the term, is the keyword, but it is not here lah. Okay, so requirement can change rapidly, but for the plan driven, it does accept requirement changes, but not rapidly lah. Okay, so small number of developer for the agile software development, and then large number of developer for the plan driven development. Small number of developer for the agile development, large number of developer for plan driven developer. Okay, so it is what the expert said, but I think it is not applicable to every software process model under plan driven development or under agile development lah, because some of the plan driven development, like the incremental development process, software process, it also supports small number of developers. So that's why I said it is not applicable to all of the software process under this category. Okay, sorry with the noise. Okay, so after that, a culture that responds to change. Okay, so the agile development can be applicable to a software that have a culture that uh, to any business company that have a culture that can always changing lah. Okay, so for the plan driven development, culture that demands order, meaning to say that even though the culture can be changing, but only with the order from the top management, then the changes can be done or can be implemented. Okay, so after that, most software projects include practice from both plan driven and agile approaches. Okay, so actually this is what I said previously with the previous DSF student lah. Okay, so there are no exact software process model that is really suitable to any to I mean to a certain type of software project, because we cannot say that waterfall only suitable for this kind of project, and then this is only after that agile or XP process is only suitable for this kind of the project, because um, there are no perfect software process model that can really co-op with the real world situation. Okay, so real world business situation that needs to for that need us to develop a software for them. Okay, so the best is actually to include the practice from both plan driven and agile approaches. Okay, so exercise. Okay, wait. Before we go to this, I think I will let you all to rest 5 minutes. Okay, so we meet again at 3:55. Okay, so 3:55. 7 minutes break lah. Okay, so I will answer your questions later, yeah, Jonathan. Okay, so welcome back again, everyone. Okay, so for Jonathan and questions. Miss, normally does Agile requires longer development time than plan driven? Yes, since Agile more complex process and have less manpower or development. Okay, so the answer for Jonathan questions is we cannot, I mean, um, for the timing, either it is longer or not, it is actually not only uh, de- relies on either it is agile or plan driven because it relies on various factors. First is the size of the system. Okay, so if you say that when you are using agile is I mean it will take longer time. We cannot say like that also lah because um agile it's as it is said in our previous in our just in our lecture just now, um it suggests for the agile to have a senior developer, right? Senior developer meaning more expert lah. Okay, so even though it is has a more complex process, but if it has expertise, because all of the team member is already expert, then the development time can be shorter. Okay, so my answer is it depends on the various factor. We cannot like pukul rata. I don't know if you all understand pukul rata. We cannot say that all of the software process under plan driven is can take a shorter time, and then we cannot also say that all of the software process model under agile is will take longer time. No, we cannot say it like that. We cannot make it general like that because it is depending on various factor. For example, first is the complexity of the system, how big the system is, and then the expertise, and then yeah, I think that two lah the main important thing uh, that can contribute or that can influence either your development is shorter or longer. It not only relies on what type of software process you implementing. Okay, so okay, Jonathan. Okay, so we proceed with the exercise. Do you all have class after this?
No.
Oh no. Okay. So I think maybe we can finish this chapter this week lah. I don't want to drag it any longer. Okay, thank you. Okay, so this exercise lah. So for the next questions that will be appear later, you just need to choose either agile or plan driven lah. Okay, so what type of system? Okay. So, is it important to have a very detailed specification and design before moving to the implementation? So, for this consideration, if the system, I mean, what do you think? For a very detailed specification and design, I mean, which is support the very detailed specification and design, either plan driven or agile? My question is apa? A little bit confusing, kan? Okay, if yes, if these questions yes, then what do you choose, plan driven or agile? Okay, I repeat again. Okay, you read these questions first. Okay, so the answer for this is yes or no, right? Okay, so for example, yes, is it important to have a very detailed specification and design before moving to the implementation? So if you say yes, it is very important. So if it is important, which process or which approach you will choose, either plan driven or agile? Yes, for plan driven. Okay. Jonathan, yes, for plan driven. Optional for the child. Okay. Other student, if the answer for one, now question number one is yes. So which you will choose, agile or plan driven? Plan driven. The plan. Okay. Good. Okay. Yes. If the system that you are going to develop really um, really focusing or really focusing on the detailed specification and design before to implementation, then you should use plan driven. So after that, okay, so is an incremental delivery strategy where you deliver the software to customer and get rapid feedback from them is realistic. Okay, so if the answer for questions A is yes, then which approach will you choose, agile or plan driven? If answer for questions A is yes, so which will you choose, agile or plan? Okay, Noel said agile. Agile. Okay, agile for two. Yes, agile. Fairer also. Okay, I want to ask Celine and Daniel. And very quiet, so I need them. Daniel and Celine. What is yes, Daniel and Celine, where are you? Please acknowledge you are here. Celine and Daniel, by using your raise hand feature. If no, then I can assume you are not here. Okay, shooting. Celine said she went away. Okay, it's okay. But what do you think for the questions number two? Is it which approach do you think is suitable, agile or plan driven? And Daniel also, that after this I will ask Ivan and Lim. Ivan and Lim after this. Yes, Daniel and Celine, for questions number two, is it agile or plan driven? Okay, so Celine said agile. Daniel, where are you, Daniel? Okay, Okay, so while we are waiting for Daniel, we will proceed to the next questions. Okay, okay, so what type of system? So this one so either that system is critical or not. I think we have discussed this previously. If the system is high criticality, what approach is suitable? I will ask Ivan. Ivan and Lim. If the system for the questions number 3, if the system is high criticality system, what approach is needed? Plan driven. Yes, Lim. Good. Ivan? Ivan? So I can see that there are some student that is idle. So if later I will go back to Ivan lah. Huh? Yeah, so yes, Lim. And then the questions number 2 just now, yes, a child. The answer is a child. Okay, so the questions number 3, Ivan is already here. Ivan, for the questions number 3, what type of system? Meaning to say that if the type of system is high criticality system, what approach should be implemented? Plan driven or agile? Okay, left again, or maybe he has internet connection issue lah. Okay, so we will go back later to him lah. Yeah. Okay, running. Okay, so Lim answer is correct lah, plan driven. Okay, for the question number 3, if high criticality, then it needs to be plan driven. Okay, so what technology are available? Okay, so this is what technology are available. Plan driven development. Okay. If all of the technology are available, if all of the technology that is needed to develop the software are already available, so what type of approach we can use? Plan driven or agile? Agile. Alvin said agile. Hey, 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 hey. Okay, so we have different answer here. Okay, so I will repeat again. What technology are available? But my question is, if all of the technology needed to develop that system is already available, then which approach we can choose? Okay, so Noel and Shak said plan, and then Elvin and Wong said agile. Okay, so the answer, okay, Kelvin also said plan. So the answer is actually plan, because plan-driven development, it 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 plan everything in advance. So it will make sure that all of the technology are already available, because if the technology is not available, it meaning to say that they will need to do some adjustment in the middle of the development letter. So plan driven usually don't really changes or requirement changes in the future. So when all of the technology are available in order to develop that software, then they can use the plan driven. But agile software development, even though some of the technology are still not available, they can still proceed with the development, starting with some module that can be proceed first, even that is maybe that module don't need that technology yet, so they can proceed first. So if the technology, there are some of there are some of the technology that is not available, that's still not available, then we can use agile. Okay. Okay. So after that, there are cultural issue. Okay, so this one I think we have already learned in our different session previously. When there are a lot of cultural issues, then we can apply agile software development. And then when there are no, I mean, if the cultural issue is less, then we can use the plan driven. Okay, so how good are the designer and the programmer? Okay, so I think this one also you all can assume already lah. Can assume already lah, because for agile we need the more expert developer or programmer, and then the plan driven, even junior programmer also enough already. Okay, so is the system subject to external regulation? Okay, so this one I want to ask lah. Shak. Shak already answer lah just now kan. Okay, sorry Shak. So I want to ask someone that is usually didn't participate. So Wong, not Wong, nya Wong nya power. Apanya? Zisheng Wong. Zisheng Wong. Zisheng Wong, where are you? We are still, Ivan and Daniel still didn't proceed, didn't appear or didn't participate. Okay, yes, Wong. Okay, so for question number 8, Wong, when the system is subject to external regulation, so which approach is more suitable, agile development or plan development? Meaning subject to external regulation, meaning it depends on some external regulation, maybe a company regulations or government regulation. Okay, so plan, you said plan. Okay, so other student, do you want to try to answer? Agile, Nathan and Shak. Yes, agile. So the answer is actually agile lah, because usually when the system is subject to external regulations, or when the system depending on external regulation is something that we cannot easily control because it is not within our scope. Okay, so it is based on the third party. Okay, so for example, if it is relies on the government regulation, we don't know that maybe the government regulations in any time can be changed, right? Okay, for example, like the My Sejahtera things lah. Somebody is in phase 1, somebody in phase 2, and then okay, for example, the distributions of BSH. Okay, so government policy is always changed. Sometimes last year only few amounts is given, and then this year new amounts is introduced, right? So we cannot rely on, we cannot say that the regulations from the other third party regulations or government lah, it is not something that we can control. So that's why Agile is more suitable, because Agile is more suitable for usually change requirement. Okay, so after that, okay, well, so we proceed with the extreme programming lah. So we have 15 minutes for extreme programming. So extreme programming is the first and well-known agile software development method. Okay, so it was introduced by Ken Beck during year 2000. Okay, so these are the process or the cycle of XP release. Okay, so first they will select the user story for this release. Okay, so if it means stories here, meaning it's like if you remember just now the bricks or the to-do list. Okay, so it is like this lah. The story is referring to the bricks or the to-do list. Okay, so in the extreme programming, they will choose which bricks or which stories that should be released first in that particular release lah. Okay, so after that, they will break down the bricks. Okay, so it is like the bricks diagram just now lah. They will break down the stories task. They will need to see whatever activity or task that is needed to be done to develop that stories. Okay, so I hope you all can understand lah. The story is referring to the bricks. Okay, so after that, they will release the plan. Whatever they have breakdown in this phase, they will release the plan. After that, they will develop and then test. Okay, during this process, they will develop and then directly test each of the stories. Okay, after that, they will release the version of that stories. Okay, after that, they will do the system evaluations. After that, they will go to the next stories again lah, until all of the stories have been developed, and then the complete system will be delivered to the user. After that, these are the feature of extreme programming. So each of these is already actually explained in the previously agile punya feature just now. Okay, so that's why I said for the software process model to be categorized as the agile, they need to adopt all of the 12 principles of the agile. So that's why all of the feature of the extreme programming here will also similar with the 12 principle of the agile method, of the agile development method lah. Okay, which is the incremental planning, small release, simple design. Already explained this all previously. Okay, test first development, meaning during the development they also do the test directly. Refactoring meaning to say that they will improve the code continuously. Refactoring, okay, so I think I have more good explanations here. Okay. Okay, so practice of refactoring, meaning in extreme programming, they will have this one feature, which is refactoring. Refactoring meaning to say that it will involve the restructuring of the system without changing its behavior, okay, aiming to remove duplication, improve the communication, and simplify or add needed flexibility. Because developers have unit tests and continuous integration will be practiced. Okay, so there can be relative confidence that the system behavior has not changed. The design is not completed all at once in the beginning, but it is modified when needed and improved over time. So meaning to say that refactoring is you improve the code, but you didn't change any of the behavior of the system. You just make it maybe faster, or you make the code is lesser, but the behavior of the system, how it feedback to the client, how it should proceed from 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 one page to another page, still similar. But what you did is you just improve the code. Maybe you make it faster, or you like I said, you make your system lighter, so that later uh, when people download your software, there will be much space needed. Okay, so because lesser code is better lah, lesser code is better. Okay, so after that, pair programming. I think this one is a special feature of extreme programming if we compare with the 12th Agile principle previously, where the extreme programming is need to have a pair programming. Okay, so pair programming meaning is each of the production of the code will be done by two programmer. Okay, okay, so the two programmer will work it at the same machine or facility, and then the programmer A will check the programmer B code, and then he will improve it. Okay, so similar thing happen with the programmer B lah. Programmer B need to check programmer A codes so that they can improve it. Okay, so both of them can improve each other code, but it doesn't mean that they use one computer and then both of them are sitting sitting side by side lah. No, it is not a pair programming. Maybe they will set up one computer that can be accessed by two persons at once, and then each of the programmer will work at the same module, but maybe different code. But they will need to check the other programmer's code lah, meaning each other code lah. Okay, so that is a pair programming, and it is only implemented in extreme programming. After that, collective ownership. So this means that establish ownership of the code by the whole team. Okay, so anyone can change any piece of code in the system at any time. Okay, so because unit test is emphasized along with continuous integration, so you can be relatively confident that the changes do not destabilize other pieces of the system. Okay, so remember, because there are no explanation in this slide. Okay, so the collective ownership meaning to say that everybody in that team can change any code in the system at any time. Okay, so that is the collective ownership. Everybody has the ownership of that system. Okay, so continuous integration. So this is because each of the increment will produce one module or one release, and then after that we will integrate each of the module or release into one big system. So that's why they are continuous integration. So sustainable pace meaning to say that it's like what I said previously with the sustainable development. You remember that each of the team member should not work over 40 hours work, 40 hours per week. Okay, do not let, using extreme programming, they will not let their workers to work overtime 2 weeks in a row. Okay, so on-site customer meaning to say that you will include the real customer in your development lah. You always will need to communicate with them to get the feedback. Okay, so we have learned, this is actually the summary, we have learned in the chapter 2 from previous week until this week, we have learned about this all process model, which is the waterfall model and then prototyping model. Under the prototyping, we have learned two types of prototyping, which is the throwaway prototyping and then the evolutionary prototyping. After that, we have learned about RAD. After that, we have learned about the evolutionary model, which is incremental and spiral. After that, we have learned about just this week lah, we have learned about CBDM, component based. After that, we have learned about the agile software development. And then we have learned extreme programming, which is under agile software development. Okay, so these are the exercise lah. Yes, the software organization you are working with has recently successfully bid for project to develop an e-learning system. Okay, so I think you all will need to learn, read this first, and then during our practical letter, I will ask for your answer lah. For this one, this is not group group work lah. It is individual. So you free to choose whichever software process that you think suitable. Okay, so there are no right or wrong. I just want to hear your opinion, but you will need to provide me a valid reason lah, relevant reason why you should that software process model. Okay, so I will ask this during the practical letter. Okay, so is there any questions?
No.
No, so far so good. Okay. Okay, so if you all have no questions, just answer these questions, these exercise questions, and then later we will discuss it during our practical lab. Okay, so during our practical letter also, after you all answer this, and then after I ask you all about this, we will proceed to another discussion lah. Okay, so yeah, so if you don't have any question, we can dismiss our class. But wait, I check first who are not here. Daniel, are you here? Yes, Daniel. Okay, so Daniel, I think you've been idle. Yeah. You've been idle since in the middle of since I asked you just now. If not, then I can assume you are not attending our class. Okay, so I only noticed Daniel lah, but the others, you are lucky if I didn't notice now. But it's okay. So I will ask Daniel later. Okay, so you all, we can dismiss now.
Okay.
Bye.